Hello everyone, welcome to the Prince Magnum channel where hot rodding and romance do coexist. I'm your host Prince Magnum, welcome to Guilty Pleasures Cooking. Today in Guilty Pleasures Cooking we're going to talk about a food cooking method that sometimes is mistaken as being really bad for you, but it's not as bad as you think. We're going to talk about the essence of pan frying. Now we've done that numerous times here on the channel, but before we dive into that, we need to talk about a couple of things. There's two types of people in the world that panic when they hear the word fry. And those two people are an inmate sitting on death row or people who are fat folk conscious, okay? So because of that, a lot of times pan fry gets lumped in with immersion frying, which are technically speaking two different cooking methods. Now with immersion frying, you take the target food, say like these hash browns, which we're going to use for this particular episode, and you drop them inside of hot oil, and it goes down inside that hot oil. The hot oil now surrounds the food, and the heat can penetrate and turn the moisture inside of said food into steam, thus that loud sizzle that we're all familiar with when it comes to immersion frying. With pan frying, you don't use as much oil. As a matter of fact, I know of several different frying methods that are pan fried. Pot stickers a lot of times, in other parts of the world, pierogies if you will, certain turnovers that you would get in the South. That uses very little bit in the way of a hot fat as a cooking medium. So that's what we're basically bringing to the table. So again, we're going to whip these store-bought hash browns up in a pan fry method, but we're going to do some other stuff along the way that's going to crank the flavor up and turn it almost into a meal all on itself, which is going to be really cool for you guys. But we're also going to use a particular cooking medium that's going to make y'all a little bit nervous. And let me explain. Inside this harmless looking jar is bacon drippings, okay? Basically, you might as well say homemade lard, okay? Now I know right now, hearing that word lard automatically sends some interesting thoughts up into people's heads. Usually, when you hear the word lard, it's usually in reference to someone's backside. Well, as awful as this may sound, what's in this jar is probably healthier than what you would get in, say, something like, believe it or not, this right here, okay? Now, why is that? Well, it has all to do with saturated and unsaturated fats, okay? Something like that is designed to be shelf stable, and they add in hydrogen to make it shelf stable, so any possible health benefits out the window. This even goes more so with the food industry, because the oils that they use, the cooking oils, the shortenings that they use inside of a restaurant, I don't care what restaurant you talk about, is loaded with a lot of hydrogen, which again, the hydrogen makes the oil basically last longer, but unfortunately, any possible health benefits out the window. But this, on the other hand, being homemade, if you will, from whatever we've done up bacon. This particular oil right here, this basically homemade lard bacon drippings, is very healthy. Turn back the clock to around World War II, and this would have been the normal cooking medium in most every kitchen. It wasn't until after World War II that this went away. Take any one of those folks from around the time of World War II, back during the Depression and up until after World War II, most of them stayed thin all the way until their passing. And most of those folks are almost gone now, but most of them stayed very healthy. So maybe there's something to this. So like every good cooking show, we're going to full time space, and I'm going to bring you guys a little bit closer. We're going to even talk about some of the tools and everything with kind of a close up so you guys can get a look at what we're doing. Alright folks, this little guy right here we're all familiar with. Currently right now I've got it getting warm right now, getting ready for our bacon drippings, which is right here. This is something that I've picked up a while back, and I recommend it for anybody doing any immersion frying or doing pan frying like we're doing today. Basically this little guy sits right here on top and prevents grease splashing everywhere. Honestly, I wouldn't mind if we had these at work, because it'd be like, bam, heck with it, and we're good to go. It'd be nice if we had something like that at work, so we're not always cleaning every vertical surface in the dang store. But it is what it is. Alright, along with that, you're gonna need some spring-loaded tongs, and believe me, these work in a pinch, and of course a retrieval rig, which we have off to the side over here. Basically it's a half sheet pan with a cooling rack on it. Alright, you'll need that so excess oil has a way to drain away from your target food. Alright, so right out of the gate we're going to go ahead and we're going to start spooning in our bacon drippings. Okay, we want to start melting our bacon drippings in here, and then we're gonna, from there, we will grab our hash brown patties and go from there. Alright, so we're basically going to bring it up to where it's right about like that, in the pan. You might have to, some people measure it out. I'm not going to bother with all that, okay? But don't run off basically with the, put that up just yet, because you may have to add more as you go along. All right, and again, this is actual bacon drippings, the same stuff that my grandparents would have used prior to World War I, which again here in the United States was the most common cooking medium. So I believe I got just enough in there from here. So in just a moment, we'll get ready. Once this comes up to full temperature and everything's melted up real good, we'll go ahead and start adding in our target food. All right. So, like always, let's fold some time and space. All right. Judging by the little wisp that I'm assuming you guys can see, I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but by the little wisp of smoke coming off of the oil, I know it's pretty well ready. And you can actually kind of put your hand right over the top and feel the heat coming off of it. Now we've got our hash brown patties, and yes, these are frozen. You don't need to thaw them out, okay? Just like they do in the restaurant, don't bother with all that. But what you're going to do is, and for this size pan, I found that 2 of them was more than enough. You're going to gently put those down in the oil and lay that right over the top. Alright, we're going to let that cook for a couple of minutes. You might have to adjust the heat here and there to compensate for the fact that cold food just hit this pan. And as the cold food hits the pan, it's going to suck that heat right out. The heat basically travels to cold. And as it sucks that heat out, we have to give it time to kind of rebound, okay? That's why if you're ever working in the restaurant industry, you drop cold food down into a fryer, you can actually hit the temperature button and literally watch the temperature of the oil drop down, and those industrial grade fryers have to rebound and push it back up. That's why some restaurants will even say you alternate different fry vats. You'll start on 1, go to 2, then your third one, or however many, and then you back to 1 and keep going like that, and you alternate. That's why they do that. Alright, so we're back to folding time and space, so I'll see all of you in just a few minutes when we go to make the turn. Alrighty, now it's time for that turn. You're going to turn it over. Just like that. And there we go. Give it another few minutes on this side, and it'll be cooked all the way through, golden brown and delicious. And before any of you might say anything about the slight darkness around the edges, that's actually commonplace. And there's a reason for it. Because we're using bacon drippings, there's going to be other stuff that goes along with that. So because of that, it just makes sense that there's basically, it's kind of like when you pan fry chicken. It's the same effect, which you all have seen me do before. So do not panic. Believe it or not, that actually tastes really good. So I'll see all of you in a moment. Alrighty, folks. Look at that. Not bad. Again, a little on the dark side, but that's perfectly fine because, believe it or not, these are going to taste great. Okay? Now, we're going to give this a moment. We might need to, again, adjust the heat here and there as we go along. I'm going to go ahead and back off it just a smidgen. Alright? Again, you know, it just depends. But give it a moment to kind of rebound, alright? And when you put this in pan fry, you don't crowd the pan. Okay? And again, this is just one of those things. Don't crowd the pan and watch your temperature closely, okay? You want to keep it, if you're going to actually monitor it with with some sort of thermal device, keep it between the ballpark area of 365 to 375 degrees and you'll be just fine, okay? So, you know what? Pretty much from here, we're just going to keep on going. We're just going to keep on trucking. I got like 20 of these. We're probably going to do up like 10, and then we'll top them off right. So, here we go. Alright, folks, let's talk really quick about that infamous sizzle, okay? And it's one that I think we've talked about a few times, but the infamous sizzle of food frying is actually ridiculously simple to understand, okay? Let me explain. What that basically is the heat from the oil basically starts pushing on the target food, our hash browns in this case. And the heat basically takes the moisture inside the food and turns it into steam, thus the infamous sizzling. Now, we have to be very careful because if we don't want our food greasy, what we have to actually do is pull the food before that sizzling stops. Because if that sizzling stops, there's no more moisture pushing out, so now the oil can invade. And if we leave it longer than that, after that point, it burns. So, when we get to the done stage, we want to pull it before it has a chance to burn. But after that point, basically, when the moisture runs out of our target food, and the sizzling stops, the oil invades, and when the oil invades, you get greasy food. Our food is not going to be greasy, okay? It's just not, okay? So, a little bit of tidbit knowledge from me to you guys on when it comes to pan frying, which I hope after this video you guys might be interested in doing it. Let's do some more. Alrighty, this is it. The last of them that we're going to do today. And there we go. Let those drain down. Make sure that you turn off the heat. Now really quick, while we're here and things are starting to cool off and that sort of thing, please note where I have the handle here for the pan that we used for our pan fry. Now it doesn't matter if you're doing pan frying like we did here or you're doing immersion frying. I'm going to give you guys one of the most important safety tips that you're going to learn in any of my episodes, and it has all to do with a loved one. Make sure that if you've got little ones, turn the handle inward like this, because if you don't and you got little ones running around and they can reach that high, well, I had a cousin that did that and she burned herself pretty severely, enough where we didn't think that she was, the doctors did not think that she was ever going to be able to have children because of how much oil had hit her body. Went through several surgeries and she still has some problems today, but she manages to get by and has 3 beautiful children, thank goodness. But let that be a lesson to all of us. When you're doing any type of frying like this, make sure you turn the handle inward, just like you see right here. That way little ones can't get themselves hurt. Again, this is an important safety tip that I don't think a lot of other channels really cover, because that was a horrible, horrible nightmare for my entire family. And you know, to my cousin, well, you know I love you to pieces, and I think the world of you, so much so that we're passing on this little safety tip. So, alrighty, on to the next stage. Alright, our hash browns are done. But from here, we could eat them just like this, it'd be fine. We could throw, some ketchup on it and serve it right next to, whatever we felt like. Eggs, bacon, sausage links. But I had something else in mind. Let's go ahead and take a couple of these bad boys right like this. Alright, still nice and warm. And then we're going to take some stone ground mustard. Dijon, if you prefer. But I like the stone ground. Just a little bit. Don't go crazy. Alright. Just a little bit. Right like that. And then I'm going to reach over here. Grab some diced tomatoes. Not a lot. Just a little bit. Right over the top. Right like that. Similar to our homemade bruschetta, which we'll have to do again sometime here on the channel. I like that. Now that looks good. Let's give it a try and see what we think. Now that's what I call a fine dish. Well, I hope I've inspired all of you to try your hand at pan frying. So, be sure to check out the Teespring store. Be sure to check out the Patreon. In the meantime, get out there and work on a project. I don't care what it is. Just do something with yourselves. Remember, idle hands and a creative mind go together like oil and water. If you have a sweetheart, sweep them off their feet. Do something special for them today. As always, for every last one of you out there, no one out there has told you that they love you today. Prince Magnum does. God bless you, and have a happy 24. Thank you.
Sayer, 6.22 with an over 116 miles an hour. And right now, good time to go get a hot dog while we wait for Cam.